Okay, after trying this one specific keyboard, I can confirm it makes a lot of other keyboards on the market look really overpriced, and it's only being sold for $89. So it's not budget to a lot of people, but it is definitely undercutting a lot of the mainstream keyboards that cost up to $150, even $200. So this keyboard is the Womier SK71. Well, technically it's the Attack Shark M71, which is what it's called on the Amazon page, which I bought it from, but I'm pretty sure it's the exact same manufacturer as the ones that made the Womier keyboard, or that's branded as Womier. And the title was not clickbait. Not only is this keyboard insane for the price, but it is just insane, full stop. And even compared to keyboards double its price, it completely blows them out of the water, and in this video I'm going to tell you why. And it starts with the build quality, which already is some of the best in any pre-built keyboard. So they call it an aluminium alloy, and it is pretty heavy. It's not crazy heavy if you've used any like really premium keyboards that are ceramic or stainless steel, but it's much heavier than most pre-built gaming keyboards that are normally plastic. It also feels a lot more premium than other aluminium alloy keyboards that I've used, which are the Keychron K2 and the regular GMMK. If you didn't tell me the price of any of those keyboards, including this one, and you asked me which one was the most expensive, I would guess this one, but it's the cheapest. I haven't used either of the GMMK Pro or the Keychron Q series, but I would assume this keyboard can compete with those in terms of build quality. And if this sick aluminium case wasn't enough, this is one of the few keyboards on the market with a gasket mount. This style of mounting is becoming increasingly more popular in mechanical keyboards, especially the ones that were built for enthusiasts, just like the Keychron Q series and the GMMK Pros. There was a period of time where gasket mounting was pretty much exclusive to the really ultra high-end keyboards, and you would pretty much never see it in a pre-built gaming keyboard. I'm not going to tell you how exactly a gasket mount works, mainly because I don't know how it works, but I will tell you the effect it has on the typing experience. So if you've used a gasket mount keyboard, you'll find that when you press in on the keycaps a little bit, but don't do it too hard, the plate has a little bit of give, so you can almost press it in slightly. You'll also find that you can't really do this on cheaper keyboards that use a plate mount. But this gasket design essentially gives the switch some extra damping. It basically minimizes that twang you might get and kind of mimics the effect you get of placing your keyboard on a desk mat instead of just putting it on a straight hard desk. Okay, now let's talk about the switches, which are the white jades, which are linear. Even though the switches on this keyboard don't even matter that much, because it does come with a 3-pin hot swappable PCB. I can't find anywhere on the Amazon page saying that they come pre-lubed, but someone in the reviews said that they do come pre-lubed, and I believe that because they feel very smooth, far smoother than any classic gaming keyboard on the market. They very much have a clacky sound instead of a thocky sound, which doesn't make that much of a difference to me, as long as the switches are smooth, which they are, and as long as the stabilizers are good, which they also are. I have no idea how they've gone and done it at this price point, but they've probably gone in with a very heavy amount of lube on these stabilizers because they feel really good. There's no rattle in any of the larger keys, but I will say there's a very slight inconsistency where the left shift key seems to be the only key with stabilizers that feel a little bit overlubed, but only by a bit, so it's not that big of a deal. The keycaps are also insanely good. They're PBT, which is hopefully pretty much standard by now, and they do feel really high quality. They're not like those really rough PBT keycaps. They feel super comfortable to type on. And they also come in really cool and unique colors. So the ones I have are from the blue one, obviously, but they also have a purple and a silver. And the keycaps for each one have pretty unique accent colors, which are really nice. And again, not at all normal for a keyboard at this price. You would probably just expect an all-black keyboard and maybe an all-white version. And not to mention, the box comes with different colored accent keycaps, so like different colored arrow keys, a different escape keycap, and media keys, even though it's a 65% keyboard, but I am not complaining. Now let's talk about the lights, which are pretty decent on this keyboard. Honestly, they really didn't need to be. They really could have just made this keyboard without RGB and it would have been perfectly fine, because the keycaps in the case already make it look really premium, like it's a custom keyboard, and most custom keyboards don't have RGB because the company might think it looks a little tacky. Honestly, it depends which colors you choose. I normally either keep this light blue on or just turn it off completely. And the lights are decently bright. They're not crazy bright, but they're definitely good enough. Again, I don't think they necessarily needed RGB on this keyboard, but I'm not complaining that they included it, and they've done it really well. And it even has bar lights on the sides, which in itself is another feature you really just don't see in a lot of keyboards. And it's decently bright, The only thing that I would say is that it doesn't perfectly match up with the backlight of the keycaps, but it's very slight and not that big a deal. And there's even more things that they didn't need to do at this price point, but they did, and I'm really glad they did. So on top of the keyboard, there are a bunch of controls for connecting the keyboard. You have line, Bluetooth, and 2.4 gigahertz. I normally just use the keyboard in wired mode, but they also have this nice little place for the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, which again, not even keyboards that are double this price have, so you end up just losing the dongle anyway. But you also have a switcher between Mac and Windows. And again, keyboards that are double this price don't have this feature, but these guys added it, and it just goes to show how much value you get with this keyboard. So all that I described about this keyboard was pretty positive, because it really is just one of the craziest values in not just keyboards, but in tech in general. But I'll go ahead and nitpick and mention a couple of the very slight things that I wish were different about this keyboard. The first thing is not even the fault of the keyboard, it's completely my fault, which is that it's 65%. Personally, I prefer a 75% keyboard because it makes accessing media keys way easier, but I'm sure most people won't have an issue with the 65% layout. I honestly prefer it over TKL or something. Also, I'm not the biggest fan of the 3 LEDs on the keyboard deck itself. It does tell you useful stuff, like where the caps lock is on, but I just think it looks a little tacky. I think it could have been on the side or something. Again, not even the biggest deal. And then the last issue is only for Mac users, so a very small percentage of users, but it has a Mac toggle, so I feel like I have to mention it. So when you're on a Mac, you have 2 options for your keyboard shortcut setup, and you can switch between them by pressing FN twice. So one of them makes it so that if you want to access the numbers, you have to hold FN, which is a little annoying because you're using numbers very often, obviously. But in this mode, it also means that on a single press, your number row acts as media keys. So 9 is pause, 7 and 8 are previous and skip tracks respectively, and stuff like that. But then if you press FN twice and enter the other mode, the numbers work on a single press, just fine, but this time holding FN and then the number row doesn't actually give you the media controls, and I am yet to figure out what the problem is with that. I don't know if you can change it in the software because the software isn't available on Mac, it's only on PC. It's not that big of a deal because you can just press FN twice and switch between the modes really quickly, but I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so in conclusion, I don't think there's a single person who's going to buy this keyboard and not be amazed at the value you're getting for the money. I honestly don't understand how under the radar this keyboard has been, because it's definitely not being talked about enough, and there are only 2 reasons I can think of as to why someone wouldn't like this keyboard. And one of them is because of the 65% layout, as we talked about, but that can easily be fixed by getting the very similar Womier SK71, which is very slightly more expensive, but 75% and has a higher quality chassis, and that is being sold at an insanely competitive price of $104 right now. But then the second reason is if you're a very competitive gamer and need features like null binding and rapid trigger, which are not on keyboards like this, and for now I think are only on keyboards like the Razer one and the Womier one, because those literally give you a competitive advantage in games like Overwatch and CS. Other than that, I can't think of a single person who's going to be disappointed when they get this keyboard. So huge props to Womier for basically challenging every keyboard that's being sold at whatever price it's being sold. And a huge thanks to you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed or found it useful, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.